So here we have the DSTEC Original Syn. It's a monophonic synthesizer, fully analog, apart from digital control, obviously, but the sound is entirely analog. It was built in the late 90s. I believe it came out in 1999. And actually, I was asked by John Malloy, a good friend of mine who passed away sadly 2 years ago, if I'd help with some ideas for the synth. But I can't take any credit for the synth at all. I just basically agreed that what they had decided to do was good, and a few small changes coming more from a user point of view. But in return for that, they actually gave me a black prototype, which I still have. The synth is a very powerful monosynth. Although it's relatively simple, it has some hidden functions which really make it sound excellent. So I'll just run through the features and how you program it. Basically, it's only got one knob. Now, in analog synths, that's a bit of a bummer, but it's very easy to program. And obviously, it came in at a certain price point. I believe it was £699 in 1999, which wasn't given away, but compared to other high-quality analog synths was very affordable. But to be honest, the programming is relatively simple. You simply go into edit mode, and then you have a matrix of buttons. So, for example, if I want to change the filter cutoff, I simply press those two buttons, and then I can adjust the cutoff with the knob. So that's how you choose any function, using the matrix. In effect, it's very similar to how the Matrix 6 from Oberheim worked, I believe. Let's go through the features. You've got an LFO. The LFO has rate. It has shape. By the way, the rate can be synced to MIDI and key down separately or together. And you have a delay. The shape goes from triangle to square wave to saw up to saw down and to random. So that's a fairly classic LFO. Then we get to the very interesting oscillators. So these are VCOs. You can choose down an octave, up an octave, and all notes in between using the coarse function. The fine just fine tunes it up or down. Now we get to the oscillator shape, and this is where it gets interesting. You have a sawtooth, then you have a pulse, but the pulse goes up to 16. And what that is 16 preset pulse amounts. So unlike a fully variable pulse waveform, you get to choose 16. So, but that's a fairly good compromise. It's much like the Mini Moog, except I believe that had 2 or 3 pulse widths. But then, when you get to the next functions, it is C. And this stands for chorus. And in effect, what this is each VCO has its own LFO. And that LFO is modulating the pulse width. And you can go from very subtle to very deep. So I'll play a simple sequence just on that one oscillator with the filter open. And I'll run through the wave shapes. So as you can hear, even one single oscillator sounds pretty fat. So that's a very nice feature. You can keep one oscillator and just work with one oscillator and have a very full sound. You have 3 oscillators, as said. The second and the third can also be synced or cross-modulated with the oscillator above, I believe. So you have sync 1, sync 2, and cross mod. So you have some functions to create FM style sounds or weird effects. The shape is the same on Oscillator 2, all the same functions. But when you get to Oscillator 3, when you go back to the beginning, you also have noise and external. So there's an external input. You can replace Oscillator 3 with an external input or with white noise. Then we get to the filter. It's a classic 24 decibels per octave low-pass filter. When you see STC, it means it's controlled by the modulation wheel. So now if I play the sequence and fiddle with my modulation wheel, you'll hear the effect. Now I go to resonance and I'll add some resonance. So a very nice sounding filter. You have resonance, you have LFO amount to the filter cutoff, envelope 1 amount to the filter cutoff, keyboard range, so the higher you go up the keyboard, the more open the filter will become, and MIDI velocity to the filter cutoff. The next function is Portamento. And then 2 classic envelopes. Very simple, straight ahead. Attack, decay, sustain, and release. Then finally, we get to the Arpeggiator, which is a very full-featured arpeggiator. This is the rate, but it can also be synced to clock. So that is synced. If we go to the type of arpeggiator, you have a multitude of options, which include different rhythmic settings. So for example, 8th notes, 16th notes, triplets, I believe. So up with 9 options, down with 9 options, up, down with 9 options, down, up with 9 options, and 9 options of random. So a very fully featured arpeggiator and a nice addition. So that's basically the overview of how the synth works and what features it has. Apart from that, you have the system functions, which is MIDI channel, protect on off, the trigger modes, so you can have the keyboard triggered, re-trigger, resetting the envelopes or not every time it's triggered. I think there are 4 modes. And that's it. And then you can store 128 programs. Another great function of this synthesizer is that almost every function, if not all of them, can be controlled by MIDI controllers. So even the wave shape can be controlled in real time from your sequencer via MIDI. So in effect, you have full control of every parameter from your sequencer. Now, this at the time was very, very advanced. The fact that you could basically control all of the functions and record all of those functions as MIDI data, and it works fine, was a great thing, and something that makes it extremely usable even today. So there we are. That's the DSTEC Original Syn. Came out in about 1999. If you see one, buy it. And here's a small demo.